Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's August 23rd, 2023, another garden update. Over here in the western, and I just went out and grabbed a big, fat, juicy peach out in the first food forest, and it's time to start harvesting those. Thea's not going to be happy to hear about that. So, over here in the western garden plot, honeyberries, they're done producing their berries and all. The blueberries, they're pretty much done. Are there some blueberries here? Yeah, they're basically for the birds right now, and a couple when I go through. And yeah, still delicious. Haven't done any weeding over here this week yet. It's time to do it. I still haven't gotten the weeds and the stones off the weed mats. But all in all, things are pretty good. Got to nip these weeds in the bud before they get any worse. Then I've got bindweed coming up from the outside, and it's starting to make its way across here, and it will set root. So I have to make time to go and get to that. Get that done. Yeah, there's still blueberries on some of the blueberry plants here. But the birds are in here, and they beat us to them when they get down to this low a number. The thornless blackberry plants need to be retied up. Last week I put in the rebar, and Thea put some cable ties on them. Gonna have to do some pruning here and tie the rest of these up. But they're doing okay. The birds have been coming over and getting some of the Triple Crown and Chester thornless blackberries, which we weren't counting on for this season, since we just transplanted those this fall and this season, just trying to get them established. So pretty happy with how they're doing. Next year will be nice. I really think supporting these primocanes initially, so that next year when they turn into florocanes, you have lots of good berries that aren't drooping down onto the ground. Yeah, there's weeding to be done in here. Most of the flowers are gone. Have lots of the Pennsylvania smartweed over there, just about to go to seed. So, as you can tell, I haven't spent any time in the western garden plot. Little behind here. Too many things going on around here to keep us busy. So, I did work over yesterday, finished up that hugelkultur pit where we took down a bunch of trees. I took down about 20 more trees, about 15 yesterday, about 20 trees since I made the video on taking down the trees. And I got the dirt covering up that hugelkultur pit. And there's a couple more widowmakers over there. Oh, sorry, camera. Bye-bye, on. Is going to go do some activities today. So comfrey, this is the third growth of it over here. We've got some weeds growing up as well. The which ones are these? These are not the butternut. These are the acorn squash over here. So you can see acorn squash are looking pretty good, getting close to being harvesting. We probably got at least another week before that. Been harvesting tomatoes now this last week. That's been great. So these are the acorn squash in here. A few tomatoes, really producing a lot of tomatoes on those plants. And so this row here is the butternut squash in this row here. And it's rather prolific. They're still pretty young down there. Try not to snap any of these as I walk through. But they've been doing pretty well. We only had a couple of the Sweet Georgia candy squash take off here, and there's a couple of tomatoes that are just starting to ripen there. So here you can see, here's the Sweet Georgia candy squash starting here. So they've got a ways to go, and there's just 2 plants here, but we'll get several really nice large candy squash off of those. And try to make it through here without damaging too much. So all in here, this is all the butternut except for the big pretty beautiful leaves here, which are the Sweet Georgia candy squash. Then we had watermelon down here. The deer keep those eaten right down, and they ate all of the honeydew, and they were honeydew. Then over here we have the blue Hubbard squash over here. And just trying to see if I see any squash starting in here. Yes, I see one small one right down there. And they do take a while to develop. And all these seeds were put in late in the season. But the deer don't tend to bother these. There's a small one there. And another little one over here. Well, I could see a couple of them now. They're all pretty small. They do take right off after they get started, which is pretty darn neat. So it is kind of interesting how we didn't do anything over here with the weed mats. Oh, there's the remnants of the watermelon down in there. Watermelon plant, I should say. So P and I were trying to pull the vines back up over onto the weed mat, but they're getting so big and heavy now, and with all their tentacles, they're reaching out and holding on. We can break them, so we'll just let them grow out into the lawn and see what they do. So the Scarlet Red Runner beans are doing beautifully. I just love these flowers. And the hummingbirds, watching them and the bees over in here is just absolutely fantastic. So this is a side that was slower to get started, and this was a side that really took off, but all the little angels, the raccoons dug up a lot of the roots in here, but they're still alive and still viable. We'll have plenty of beans. You can see some of the beans are starting to develop right now. So that's going to take quite some time for them. The path ground cover that we put down here, so we put down chamomile and clover last year. And it has done a really good job of keeping most of the grasses out of there. Now, there's Pennsylvania smartweed up in here and some grasses up in this area here. And I did reseed it with some clover, so that may still come, but the raccoons disturbed this whole area, which may have covered up taken the mulch and put it on too thick of a base on the seed that was there. So we'll see. This is the bed that the garlic was planted in. And this is what you can see here is the soybean. You can see some, I don't know if I got the camera there. See ladybug there. And there's winter rye in this bed as well. So we'll see. I need to weed whack in here, and I try not to weed whack the clover too much. When the raspberry plants, so we got 2 rows of raspberry plants right in here. And I do want to sheet mulch this area here to try and decrease the amount of weeding I've got to do. Some of these grasses really get their roots down in there. Okay, so the second row of raspberry plants, they're doing pretty well, considering that. So these are ones that we dug up by the solar panels late this spring, and they're just starting to come up because they were completely overrun with all the weeds and the grasses that were over 6 foot tall in that area. So these were all little tiny runts, and for the most part they've done pretty well getting these little runts put in here, and so we're pretty happy with them. More winter rye and the soybeans. I put fewer soybean in this area here. There are some grasses in there I could see as well. And these are the russet potatoes. So the weather forecast is calling for some rain, and over the next couple of days. We don't know that we'll actually get it, but lately we have been getting some of it. And since it's laying over, turning yellow, and the leaves are falling off of most of it, I either will try and harvest some of this today, all of it today, or I'll wait and see if we have another dry spell. I turned the drip tape off a couple of days ago just to make it easier to work in here. So that's it. And this is one of the areas I replanted clover in here, and you can see some of the chamomile there. So again, russet potatoes. This is where the shallots were, which we have the winter rye and the soybean. The raspberry plants. Where the garlic was is where the soy and the winter rye is. Here we've got the scarlet red runner beans and the cattle panel trellis here, the hoop trellis. And as you can see, I never got back over here and weeded the sweet potato patch here. But these sweet potatoes are looking good. And so we're going to do the same thing again this fall when I harvest the sweet potatoes, which is a while from now. Geez, I hate when these grasses go to seed here. We will harvest the roots, overwinter them, and do the same thing next year, because it seems to have worked out pretty darn well. Time to weed these beds again. So these are the strawberry plants, some mugwort, purslane, some maple, but some of the strawberry plants there. Some of the flowers of foxglove, and oh gosh, what is this? I forgot right now. Kills me. But not too much going on in this bed. Those are the hiscaps or the honeyberry, like in the western garden plot. So they're doing okay. No new changes with the oak trees over here in the bins. I've talked about that several times. No sense in talking more about it now. White oak, swamp white oak, swamp white oak, swamp white oak, swamp white oak, Chinese chestnuts, kale, and some other, there's some oregano in there as well, and some thornless honey locust trees. It's from some of our seed. The English oaks, oh, somebody got onto this and was chewing this down some. So the English oaks here, these are all doing well. Up front, the ones that I planted, and down back, the ones that I transplanted, all are doing very well, the English oaks. Not much going on over here. Everything's getting pretty quiescent with the herbs. The lavender, the sage, and the thyme in between there. So that's all pretty much the same. Take a quick walk up front. It's warming up. About time to take the sweatshirt off. And the peaches. Now, the apple trees that had the big limbs that came over, got knocked over by the deer and all. So I grabbed a whole bunch of the apples. We're letting the ethylene, rooting hormone, and gas help to mature the apples so we can process those later on. Here's our little peach tree in here, but the big peach trees out back are doing really, really well. Let's see, not quite there yet. Really want them to have a little bit of a squish to them. Oh no, that's great. Still very firm. Still very firm. So that variety is really, really nice. So we've been planting the seeds from them and seeing how they do. So up here in the front garden area here, some of it's coming back to flower again. Kind of interesting. Iris is doing great. Oregano are doing great. Little time there. Some thornless honey locusts, some hostas, irises, the Japanese maples, the fiddlehead ferns, the hostas in here. And since we made this bed this summertime, I think next year things will do really, really well. Now that maple is getting a little bit burnt here. See, some of these Japanese maples require a little more shade, and we're on the north side of the house here. But you could see the shade line here in the morning. So that's our gardens update. So not much new over the last couple of garden updates, except for the squash plants are really booming. So the gardens are really quieting down, except for squash and tomatoes. And the potatoes are about ready to harvest now. We'll see. I'll probably make a video of harvesting the potatoes. And Thea's working her tail off trying to process all of the other things. She did a whole bunch of the peaches that had been damaged before. And now we got the apples that were damaged, and they're maturing. She's been harvesting the mulberries. She finished harvesting all of the blueberries. And now it's time for peaches as well. And we have many bushels of peaches to potentially harvest. Well, meaning that we'll freeze them and they go in our smoothies every day. So we have a couple of smoothies a day, and that's really refreshing with all the fruit that we have here in the property. So that's it for today's video, folks. I hope you found it of some value. I hope you're taking good care of yourselves, paying attention to what's going on in your gardens, thinking about how you want to change things for next year. Really interested in hearing how people's gardens are doing, successes, challenges, obstacles, and all. This has been one hell of a year with the climate changes, having some rather catastrophic events, from tremendous wildfires, tremendous rainfall events, mudslides, certainly the usual tornadoes, and hurricane season is happening now. So it's hard to even think about doing a garden with all these things going on. But it's kind of a great investment, especially your knowledge base. The more that you learn about growing, the more secure you can be in the future. So thanks so much for watching. Stay safe and take good care of yourselves. Bye-bye now.